a second conversation, and who would have thought that the topic for this conversation is zombies? We are sitting on the Duranville people again, and I'm talking with Carmen Gray. And when I was looking at your, let's call it your portfolio of work, I was quite shocked that you are actually an accomplished writer about zombies. Tell us more.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? You wouldn't. It just seems like a weird art and zombies. So I've always enjoyed creative writing, so fictional writing, and I really started that when I was studying in WA. I started writing just as a hobby, really for fun, and so I did that for quite a long time, and eventually I got some books published through HarperCollins, and they are about zombies. They are for 8 to 12-year-old children, specifically for reluctant male readers. That's the demographic. And in these stories, there's a little boy called Benjamin Roy, and he kind of meets some evil people at his school, and through a series of circumstances, he ends up getting infected with this zombie virus. And but what the evil people don't know is that to become a real raging zombie, which is what they want to start a zombie army, he's got to attack a person and bite them to complete the process, and he refrains from doing that. So across the course of the books, he's tempted all the time. He's fighting this internal battle to stop himself from biting somebody, in particular his older and very annoying brother. That's a real challenge for him.
The books as well there, for that age group, when you started writing these, is this a figure that you've kind of mulled over and thought about over time? Tell us, where did that creative spark
The
come?
idea, where did it come from? Well, I know exactly where it came from. I have two sons, and at the time I started writing, they were probably about 10 and 12 or something like that. And they were very interested in zombies, and in fact they were always lurching around the house looking for food, so you didn't have to look hard for the inspiration there. They were often watching zombie movies and playing zombie games and things like that, and I realised that it wasn't just them, it was also all their friends were very interested in zombies. I don't know why, but there was just this big interest in them. And I noticed there wasn't a lot of books for kids that age that featured zombies. They were mostly for older teens or older adults. And as a parent, you don't really want your 10-year-old watching The Walking Dead or something like that. So I thought, well, why not try writing something? So that's how it started.
So there's a couple of dimensions here to explore. The first one is, did you have to learn the language of 12-year-olds?
Well, I already knew it because I was already there surrounded by them and their friends. So for me, the language was a daily thing I heard. So yes, I did have to learn it, but it was all just sort of, I was immersed in it.
So did you go around for a period, and there's been a few books here, hasn't there, in the series?
Yeah, 4.
4.
Yeah.
Were you like this classical social researcher who talked to them and then rushed off and got the notebook out and said, oh, there's a thing. How did you collect your material as a creative writer?
That's an interesting question, and probably all writers are a little bit different there. They all have their own methods maybe. I think for me, when I sit down to write, I just have to think back to conversations I've had, and when you're writing the words for a character, when you're writing dialogue, you sort of have an ear for it, I suppose. You sort of listen for how that sounds in your head. Would they really say that? And so I think that's probably the approach I took there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a parallel conversation ongoing with my older daughter, who's a little bit old, 17 now, one of my daughters. And she's in this age of you gradually developing your individual voice, as a human being, and you're going into this big world or whatever, and there are situations that are confronting, and I say you have to imagine in your mind, run through things.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, in your kind of creative writing process, did you find you were kind of running through the chapters or the episodes?
Sure.
And then you wrote them down? Is that how you were doing it?
The
Almost
process,
like dreaming them.
Sometimes it was more of a nightmare, but no, the process for me for writing is very it's very clear cut, because I've done it for a long time. So I've kind of developed a process that I like to follow, and I stick to it. And it's kind of for me it's about sort of going through the first draft very quickly. It's quite hard to write a first draft of anything fictional. It just seems to take a lot of energy. And in my mind, I think of it as sort of like climbing a mountain. So you're kind of battling to get to the top. But when you get there, you kind of can see all around you, and you can look down the way you came, and then you can think, actually, there was a better pathway up this way. And so then you go back down and you do it again, and it gets a little bit easier. And then again you go, well, actually, no, there was a slightly better way this way. And this, to me, is like the iterations of a drafting process. It's like writing a work of fiction and then redrafting it and redrafting it. So that first draft to me is just about getting it down as quickly as I can, and then I go back over it, and with each draft I work on one specific thing. So I might think about the structure of the scenes, and do they all work together, or are the characters all true to themselves through the whole story arc, or is the dialogue right? So I look at one thing in each draft, and I try to make that as good as I can, and then I go over it and over it probably about 10 times.
And the other thing I notice in these books, they're quite visual as well.
Okay, yeah.
So you've got this lovely little interactive site as well, where you can add different colours on the figures and things.
Yeah.
So did you also think, when you're writing here, this is a conversation for the reader between the visual and the written?
Well, I did do the illustrations for it, and I have to say, when I was working on the books, I didn't really give a lot of thought to a website or developing any of that. But it probably goes back to my history in terms of being a designer, and so it was, it's kind of second nature to me to think about the characters in terms of what they're wearing and how they look, and to actually draw them even when I'm writing. So all of that information ended up on the website, which ended up being, colouring in pages for kids and things.
So I think for me it's this lovely, it provides an opportunity for you call it the living dead, which is the adult world, or the adult televised world. And this also gives an opportunity for a shared conversation between, let's call it the adult world and the world that's coming through. So have you picked up any of that kind of feedback when people have read your books? What do they react? How do they react?
Well, most of the people that read my books are 10-year-old boys, so to them it's actually just part of the culture they live in. It's interesting because that relates to the study that I've done recently, where this, for some reason, in the last 30 years, it seems that there's been this huge surge of interest in undead things, whether they might be, zombies or vampires in particular. And there's just so many books, there's so many movies. And so for them, it's just more of the same. For them, it's a part of, and that's the world they've grown up in. They don't know a time when zombies and vampires weren't hugely popular kind of cultural icons like they are now.
I'm trying to imagine you as a teacher teaching the visual arts. So when you're teaching your students, do you kind of put this book on their reading list? I mean, and how does it inspire your teaching?
I can't say I force my students to read this book, although that's not a bad idea. I might boost my sales. No, I think probably it gives the students an example of where they can go with their creative journey in terms of illustration, I suppose. So they can see, well, this is a real world application of the skills I'm learning here. So that would be one way of I suppose, bringing those two worlds together.
And then I have a final question, which is excuse the pun, an open-ended book, because I'm fascinated by this global movement. You can go to a library and then you book a person. They are a human book. Started in Denmark, and you find it in many places now. Do you consider yourself as that kind of human book when you're teaching?
I think we all are. We can. I think we can all learn from each other, and it wouldn't really matter what human you checked out of that library. you would find something out that is amazing and new to you, I think, because we all have our own history and we all have our own story. And I think every person's story is probably very interesting if you sort of got the chance to find out about it.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Carmen.
Thank you.
You.